Copies of the agenda for tonight's meeting are available at the entrance to the room. Additionally, the agendas and minutes of prior meetings are available on the city's website. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda as presented or amended by the Planning Commission.
I'm having difficulty hearing you.
I'm okay. I hear it.
Can you hear me now?
The volume is cranked.
Good evening and welcome to the April 22nd, 2014 regular meeting of the Troy Planning Commission. Copies of the agenda for tonight's meeting are available at the entrance to the room. Additionally, the agendas and minutes of prior meetings are available on the city's website. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda as presented or amended by the Planning Commission. The roles and responsibilities of the Planning Commission are outlined on the reverse side of tonight's agenda. State law establishes planning commissions. The commission is comprised of 9 members, all of whom have volunteered to serve. Members are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. The other individuals seated at the table this evening are representatives of the city's planning department, the city attorney's office, and the city's planning consultant, Carl L. Wortman Associates. If you wish to address the Planning Commission, please come forward when recognized and present your name and address on the sign-in sheet. Please begin your remarks by stating your name for the benefit of the commissioners. All remarks are to be addressed to the Planning Commission and not to anyone else in the room. At this time, I ask that all cell phones, Blackberries, PDAs, or any other devices that might disrupt this meeting, please either be placed in silent mode or be turned off. The roll call, please.
Mr. Edmonds.
Here.
Mr. Gottlieb.
Here.
Mr. Hudson.
Here.
Mr. Krent.
Here.
Mr. Zanzika.
Here.
Mr. Shepke.
Here.
Mr. Stratt.
Here.
Mr. Tagle.
Here. Next, we have the approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion, please?
Mr. Edmonds, if I may, while the agenda has been printed and planned for us, it looks like we have a large number of people who are interested in item number 9. And rather than make them wait, I would propose that we modify the agenda to make item 9 the potential conditional rezoning, item 8, and make the planned unit development application item 9.
Do I have support? Mr. Tagle? The roll call, please.
Mr. Gottlieb.
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
Mr. Krent.
Yes.
Mr. Zanzika.
Yes.
Mr. Shepke.
Yes.
Mr. Stratt.
Yes.
Mr. Tagle.
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds.
Yes. Item 3 is the minutes of the April 8th, 2014 regular meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Tagle?
I'll second.
And seconded by Mr. Krent to approve as published.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
Mr. Krent.
Yes.
Mr. Zanzika.
Yes.
Mr. Shepke.
Yes.
Mr. Stratt.
Yes.
Mr. Tagle.
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds.
Yes.
Mr. Gottlieb.
Yes.
And number 4 is the public comment. This is for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak to an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 5, Zoning Board of Appeals report. Mr. Krent.
Yes, there was one request for variance. It was a very difficult lot in Troy that was a nursery/greenhouse. Wanted to convert it into residential housing, and because of the variance they wanted, they requested a 10% reduction of the regular zoning. After a lengthy discussion, maybe up to an hour and a half, with residents and the board listening and speaking, the board decided to postpone the decision until our next meeting. So it'll be handled at that time. The only other item we had was a report that I've put together regarding our zoning ordinance in reference to the things that came before the Zoning Board of Appeals. And that report is going to be forwarded to this commission at some point in the future.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Krent? If not, we'll move on to item number 6, Downtown Development Authority report. Mr. Sabatin.
The DDA had a meeting last Wednesday. They approved like a strategic plan for moving forward, enabling to assist them in fulfilling their debt obligations, as well as improving the landscape maintenance in the median on Big Beaver.
Is that it? Next, we'll move on to item number 8, the potential conditional rezoning application, proposed Sienna Regency at Troy, part of 30,668 Livernois, part of parcel identification number 882022101034, section 22, currently zoned R1C, one family residential district. Is that going to be you, Mr.?
Yeah, I'm going to kickstart it with just talking about, there's a lot of people here in the audience, talk very generally on why we're here and kind of the process moving forward. So this is actually a study meeting, and we typically have study meetings in the council boardroom across the hall. It's more relaxed. That's why I'm wearing a V-neck tonight and not a suit. But we kind of got wind that there's going to be a lot of people here this evening, so we shifted to this room so we could all sit comfortably. The other room lends itself more to more informal and just being able to kind of roll up our sleeves and talk. And that's what the intent of this item this evening is. What we typically do for applications that are potentially a little bit complicated is we suggest to the potential applicant that they go before the Planning Commission at an informal study session, which this is. Just imagine we're in the other room. And it gives us a chance just to really informally talk about the application. It's non-binding. We don't take action at these types of meetings for these types of items. So the Planning Commission's not voting on this evening. Okay? I want to make that clear. There's going to be no action taken this evening. So this is not a public hearing. It's a public meeting. And the Planning Commission is under no obligation to open up the microphone and let everyone talk. I think that's the chairman, that's his intent, is to give everyone a chance to speak. But I really want to hammer home the point that this is an informal meeting, and we're not taking action this evening. Based on the dialogue that we have this evening, Ben's going to present a report. We're going to have dialogue back and forth, talk about it, maybe ask questions, et cetera. The applicant's going to decide whether they want to move forward or not with an actual application for conditional rezoning. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not the applicant. We're not the applicant. We review and process the application. If the applicant decides based on feedback that they want to move forward with the conditional rezoning application, they have to submit an application and a fee. They haven't done so yet. We don't even have an application yet. This is very informal. It's very, very, very introductory stage of this. If they move forward and there's a valid application and fee, there's going to be a public hearing at the Planning Commission where everyone within 300 feet is going to get a postcard notice, and the microphone's going to be opened up and everyone's going to have an opportunity to speak. That's when action will be taken by Planning Commission. And the action is going to be a recommendation. For rezonings, the Planning Commission makes recommendations, City Council actually approves. So if this goes forward, there'll be a Planning Commission public hearing everyone's going to get notice for. And there's going to be a City Council public hearing, and City Council is going to be the body that actually approves this. Okay, so I just want to kind of bring everyone up to speed. If you're expecting action this evening, it's not going to happen. It's very informal. The planning, what the chairman's going to advise you this evening is what we're talking about, is potentially talking about, is a rezoning, a conditional rezoning, which is basically a rezoning with a site, with probably a site plan attached to it. So if you do have comments this evening, please keep your comments to the rezoning and the land use. If there's any type of complication regarding the acquisition, the purchase of the property between the church and the potential applicant, that's none of our business. It's not, we're not involved in that. Okay, so please, if you're going to comment this evening, speak to the rezoning, and if you think it's appropriate or not, that's fine, and the land use, issues that you may have specific to the type of land use. Don't go off into items that they have no purview over, because they can't do anything about it. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I just want to kind of bring everyone up to speed here.
Thank you. And I was going to ask Mr. Motsney if he would just add on a little bit about the appropriateness of public comment. Mr. Matzi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Mr. Savidan indicated, this is not a public hearing. Generally, at a study meeting, public comments for items on the agenda are item number 10 on the agenda. That's my understanding. The chair is going to allow public comments on this item before number 10, but the chair also has the right to restrict comments. He could put a time limit, and he also has the right to interfere with anybody who is making a comment that's not appropriate. A comment that's not appropriate is a personal attack on somebody. If you're addressing your comments to someone other than the Planning Commission or anything other than making a comment on whether the proposed land use is an appropriate land use, the chair does have the right to stop your comments and ask that you refrain from such comments. And the chair does have the right to have somebody removed from the meeting if their comments get out of line. And hopefully that won't happen, but thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlisle.
Thank you. I will be rather brief tonight. As Director Saudant noted, at this point, the city has only received a concept plan. We have not received a full application. So we did not do a complete review in regards to the rezoning, the site plan, and compliance with the master plan. The intent really is for the applicant to receive feedback from the Planning Commission. As noted, the applicant is proposing a proposed skilled nursing and rehabilitation center, which is located as a proposed lot split from the Zion Christian Church located on Livernois. The property is currently zoned R1C. The use of the property is for skilled nursing and rehabilitation, and what that constitutes is a short-term rehabilitation from surgery as well as long-term nursing cares. The facility includes 122 beds, and the applicant notes that they will not provide off-patient or outpatient rehabilitation services. Skilled Nursing and Rehabilitation Center is not a listed use in our ordinance. However, the type of facility as described by the applicant is consistent with what the state classifies as a convalescent center. Under that requirement, the applicant would be required to get a convalescent center permit from the state as well as provide a certificate of need. So under those guidelines, we were reviewing this and we've interpreted the use as a convalescent center. Just for more education, convalescent centers are not a permitted use in the R1C zoning district as which this is zoned, so the applicant must seek a rezoning. The applicant has indicated to us that they are proposing to seek a conditional rezoning. However, the terms of the rezoning or the conditional rezoning have not been submitted, and we don't know what the conditions are that the applicant is proposing. In addition, the applicant hasn't indicated to us what the proposed zoning district is that they are requesting a rezoning to. I think that's for further discussion with the Planning Commission. In regards to the master plan for this area and this specific site is zoned single-family residential for future land use. The single-family designation intends to preserve and enhance the existing single-family neighborhoods and provide for other uses that are compatible and auxiliary to the function of a neighborhood or single-family residential neighborhood. The master plan also goes to say that other uses that are non-residential are permitted, but such uses must be compatible with the existing single-family neighborhoods. While the use of this site as a convalescent is non-residential, the location of the site along a major mile road might allow for different uses that are not specifically listed in the master plan. However, in addition, a tenet of the master plan as well as the zoning ordinance is the preservation and protection of our existing single-family residential neighborhoods. So whatever the future use of this property is and whatever the desired rezoning of this property is going to be, the complete application will require a complete review of the rezoning standards as well as the zoning ordinance to ensure that compatibility with the existing properties in the adjacent single-family neighborhoods is met moving forward. In regards to site plan, we have not done a complete site plan review at this point because the concept plan was did not have all the necessary information provided with it. We do note that they do need to meet the specific use standards for convalescent centers, which is located in section 6.25 of the zoning ordinance. If the Planning Commission will remember, we amended those regulations to put additional provisions in there. One of the additional provisions was to provide increased buffering from adjacent single-family properties. As a result, there needs to be essentially a 50-foot green belt buffer on the perimeter of all these properties that are zoned or located adjacent to residential. We do note that the northern property line does not meet that 50-foot setback, so the applicant will either need to meet the setback and revise their application or go in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance. The other significant issue of note is parking, traffic, and circulation. The plan has preliminarily been reviewed by the traffic consultant for the city as well as the city engineer. They do note they have some issues with potential access issues as well as the future parking of the church and where it's going to be located, as well as a requirement for a traffic impact study will be required if the applicant moves forward with the application. So at this point, it's difficult for us to address any additional site planning as well as rezoning standards until we get a complete application. However, we do note that we have received numerous comments from the public as well as the number of public that's here that have expressed concerns to us in regards to the application. So at this point, the applicant is seeking input from the Planning Commission moving forward with their application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the planning consultant? If not, is the applicant here, please? Please sign in and address the Planning Commission.
I did.
Good evening. My name is Brian Gilbert. I'm with NSA Architects and Engineers. I work with Sienna Healthcare, and we're their architects of record on their projects. And this is
Good evening. I'm David Staub, STOBB, General Counsel, Sienna Healthcare.
so what we're proposing at this site is a single-story skilled nursing center. As was stated, it will not contain any external short-term rehab from the outside on a daily basis. It's strictly going to be to support its residents within on a short-term basis. And what the client has recently been observing in their facilities is a greater extent of short-term care, where it's younger people that need some additional help just to recover from surgeries or whatnot. So we're looking at that as for part of it, and then the other half of the building is going to be a long-term care. We're currently looking at a facility with about 112 beds, and it will be a mixed use of single beds and semi-private rooms. We also offer physical therapy for our residents, and as well as a number of other amenities, trying to get more of a residential feel to them rather than a institutional type of facility.
I just note that we have constructed facilities in the local areas around here. Waterford is a facility which was constructed 2 years ago.
Yep.
We just completed a facility in West Bloomfield, Grand Blanc, Ann Arbor, and and within the last 5 years, we've constructed facilities in Monroe, Temperance, which is close to the Ohio border, and I'll leave anything out. And we currently have 2 facilities under construction in Lansing, Delta Township, and Shelby Township as well.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant from the commission? If not, if you folks will just have a seat, and we'll
Thank you.
open it up for public comment. So if anyone who wants to, can you get an idea of how many people would like to speak tonight? Just a show of hands. Okay. Please come forward. Thank you.
My name is Brian Waddles. I live 2 doors north of the proposed site on the east side of Livernois. I'm opposed to the change of zoning. It's residential, it should stay residential, or appropriate uses for residential. Church is okay. We have a school, Walsh College, which is community facility zone, but it's also appropriate for residential area. I just think this is the wrong thing in the wrong place. So as Brent said, you know, you stick it to the issue of zoning. I'm opposed to changing the zoning. Simple as that.
Thank you, Mr. Waddles. The next person would come forward.
Stand in line.
While she's signing in, we will probably be limiting comments to no more than 3 minutes, but we have discretion on that, so please go ahead.
So,
Please state your name for the...
my name is Floriane Bichet. I'm living 3459 Talbot Drive. It's the street behind the project. I'm not necessarily opposed, but I was wondering, when there is a rezoning, so if it's approved, does that mean then it's going to be approved even for another project later on, or it's for a specific project? So,
Not in this case, ma'am, because it's being submitted as a conditional rezoning. So the
Okay.
site plan that will eventually come forward to us, if the Planning Commission feels it's appropriate, that will be the ruling. Those set of standards will always stay with the land, so and end the project.
okay.
Okay.
And my other question is, just by the, beside this project, they were supposed to have a park built a long time ago, and I don't know, it's been postponed for 5 years. So I was wondering if now this property becoming a commercial property and the city get revenue from that, is that going to change, and are we going to, if something's going to be done for the community in exchange of this rezoning, or no?
Mr. Sabato?
That has not been, the park to the south has not been discussed in any relationship with this project at this time.
Could we add it somewhere, or?
Well, I suppose theoretically, the applicant could voluntarily offer to make improvements to the property to the south, but it would have to be voluntarily offered, and again, it hasn't been discussed at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can I, you raised a good point. I just want to be clear that this potential project is 100% on the Zion Church's property. None of it takes place on the city-owned property to the south.
Hello, my name is Anthony Leo. I grew up around this community since I was little. My grandparents live a few miles from the church property, and basically, I have some concerns as far as the rezoning of this property. First, when I look with the new plans that Walsh College also has some plans for expanding, they currently own the property also behind Zion's property, the wooded area. If they plan to expand, kind of as what he brought up earlier with the parking situation, if you kind of chop off that parking from the church, and you also expect that Walsh College is currently going under some expansion, where is all that parking and traffic going to go? I know for certain events we have to have police officers that kind of help get traffic out of the lot during those types of events. I think with the Walsh expansion, that would kind of create even a bigger problem in condition with selling this property off in the rezone. There's a few concerns I heard from the community as far as bright light parking lots and kind of a 24/7 type of situation with this type of building. The lighting is going to be constantly on over there. There could be a lot of EMS sirens, fire sirens and stuff with maybe transportation or anything that happens over there. The possible issues with a negative effect of the city-owned property south of the Zion property, kind of as the lady before me mentioned with the park. I think that is an interesting point. with the city kind of promised years back about building that park. Is that still a viable option? Is it possible? I think that'd be something that maybe would be something to consider. Just in about 2 hours, I was able to talk to a lot of community members a few days ago, and actually have, if I'd be able to offer that to you guys as a part of the record, I have 36 signatures in 2 hours from local residents that live in the city of Troy that are opposed to this rezoning for the issues that I'm going to bring up in a second, as well as previously stated. Can I provide that to you guys?
Provide it to them.
In discussions with those people, some of the things that they told me to my face, they asked me, why is Troy considering rezoning residential property when there's already a bunch of unused commercial property in the city? So there's a lot of unused commercial property that's currently vacant near the Crooks Road and Big Beaver interchange, also near the I-75 and Crooks interchange. The other question they asked me was, why would Troy allow putting such a facility near resident homes? And why would this portion of property be in the middle of residential property? Kind of as I look in the zoning map, it almost looks like a spot zoning situation. Currently, it's all surrounding by residential property. All the commercial that's zoned is further south, and there's all residential surrounding it. So I think that's something to consider as well. Quick points: does the Sienna facility meet all the current zoning ordinances, or are there any current up for approval that they need to meet? The height limit proposed on the current ordinance is 25 feet. The proposed roof for Sienna's is 27, from my understanding. Another question for zoning: what is the front of the building? If the front of the building is on the north side, maybe as shown here, should that street actually, is that considered driveway, or should that be a city street? Because my understanding of some of the ordinance rules about primary entrance and the frontage definition in the ordinance should be any portion of a parcel of land abutting, touching, or bordering a street, throughway, or freeway. So my understanding would be that should be Livernois. So I think under the current situation, maybe that would have to be a city street. In the Troy zoning ordinance, the proposed site shall have at least one property line abutting a major arterial of at least 120 feet of right-of-way width. All vehicular ingress and egress shall be directly from a major thoroughfare. Currently, the design shows that it's actually the separate street. It's not off the major thoroughfare, which is Livernois Road. So basically, also in the Troy ordinance, ingress and egress to an off-street parking lot for all uses other than single-family residential shall not cross land zoned for single-family. Currently, Zion's property is zoned as single-family. So if this driveway is deemed direct, does it not violate the access management requirement that not cross land zoned for single-family, as Zion is single-family? So I think that's something to consider as well. In the same section under location and spacing, ingress and egress from an off-street parking lot located in an area zoned for all uses other than single-family residential shall be at least 25 feet from an adjacent property zoned single-family residential, which therefore would mean that this entrance cannot be shared. It would have to be independent and at least 25 feet south of Zion's property line, according to that ordinance. The question is, even if Zion wanted to reach an agreement with Sienna to allow currently planned entrance, could they even do that under the current Troy zoning requirements? One more thing in the Troy ordinance: paved areas shall be 10 feet from any side or rear lot that abut an adjacent residentially zoned or unused property. Zion is currently zoned as residential, so that also currently doesn't meet under the current proposing. Basically, this kind of is, it's not really of your general concern, but a point that I brought up before, you know, it's a state law about the current.
That's inappropriate.
Okay, that's fine. No, that's no problem with that. So basically, again, I currently oppose the rezoning. I think that the current plans do not meet approval under current zoning requirements by the Troy city ordinance. Again, I have 36 people on the signatures that I represent currently, and I ask you to take that into consideration. And actually, with your permission, I know that it's short on time, but I would just ask that, just as a general question to the audience, if you'd be able to ask whoever's in opposition to please stand, as a way of, since people maybe are not able to speak or don't want to speak.
We can let those people reflect that by their comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Next.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Barb Lemager. I live at 90 Wendleton, which is 2 blocks away from the parcel that we're speaking of. I've been a Troy resident for 40 years, and I do have concerns with the potential rezoning. One of the items of concern is, will there be added infrastructure costs to us with the additional wear on the roads or potential the water mains, our water pressure within the homes? Currently living where I do on Wendleton, frequently during rush hour times or church times, it is difficult getting out on Livernois. So I do foresee additional traffic intersections there, potentially an increase in traffic. And I would hope that the city would not offer some financial incentives for an organization like this to join. Many times, I know years ago, there would be incentives if a new organization would join the city, potentially some 5 or 10-year tax incentives. As a resident, it is difficult for us to acquire any additional costs to us as a homeowner. In addition, there would be additional employees coming into the area, and as a parent, maybe there would be some questionable activity that could be brought into our neighborhoods.
We're getting into a gray area there, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you.
So with that, I would just ask that please reconsider the zoning here. We like this as a residential area and hope to remain it as such.
Thank you very
for your time.
Hi, my name is Ann Smith.
Please sign in.
And I'm from Troy Meadows, which is the southwest subdivision. It's 172 homes. You'd have a lot more people here tonight, but our annual meeting is going on right now. And I'm the treasurer, so we wanted a board member to come, so I walked out and came here. So there's a lot of concern in Troy Meadows about this. So, thank you.
Would the next person please come forward? Thank you.
The one about that not that one, no.
Please sign in and state your name.
Sign it?
Yes, please.
My name is Cynthia Khan, and I represent the Pakistani and Indian Church. We are against the zoning and the building of this facility, and I agree with all the points already mentioned, and I strongly oppose this.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Dick Ramsdell, and I am an employee of Zion Christian Church. Have been involved in all of the processes that have led to the sale of this property, and wanted to indicate to the Planning Commission that we have been very diligent in the process that we went through and the analysis that we did, and that the leadership of the church obviously approved the sale. We looked very carefully at all of the issues that we felt might be involved, both from the church perspective and from the community perspective. Hopefully, we have established over the recent years in particular that we desire to be a very solid citizen of the city of Troy. Have done a number of things to reinforce that. And so we are not the least bit interested in doing anything that would be to the detriment of the city, certainly not to the detriment of our church. And we are comfortable from a decision-making point of view that the plan that's represented here is a good plan. We are certainly not the Planning Commission, and we certainly aren't capable of making judgments as to what's right from a zoning perspective or from any other perspective, but wanted to indicate at least to you that we are extremely comfortable with the plan that has been put forth by Sienna Healthcare. They have been very straightforward and forthcoming with us all through the process, have given us very careful information and plans, and have shown us all the things that you now see, and that from a totality perspective in terms of the church's plans, it fits our situation. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Karen Cruz, and I'm the president of the Westwood Park Homeowners Association. My association and the residents in my neighborhood are opposed to the rezoning of the Zion land for the proposed use before you. We have concerns about traffic congestion. We have concerns about the use of the land and the appropriate fit for what Livernois should look like going forward as you head north or south towards the Big Beaver corridor. We don't think that a convalescent facility would be the best use of that land. If Zion is willing to sell it, we feel confident that there are other more appropriate buildings that would enhance that general entrance into the Civic Center area in a way that is more in accordance with the master plan. So I just need to go on record this evening as representing my homeowners association as in opposition of the proposed rezoning.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
My name is Beth Schwark, and I have lived on Frankton Drive for 25 years, raised my family here and what have you. I currently work at a hospital, and right now it's just a single-story building, but with any facility in the areas and stuff like that, they always continue to grow and grow and grow. So I am very highly opposed to anything coming in such as this, and I just want to let you know. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Corey Milliken. I've attended Zion Christian Church for just about 6 years now, and I'm here this evening to just come before you and just speak on behalf on a large majority of the congregation of the church who are in a strong opposition of this rezoning. Thank you.
My name is Alicia Hardig. I am a member of Zion Christian Church as well as a resident of Troy for most of my life. I've been a member at Zion for the last, 15 years. I am strongly opposed to this. I don't think it's in the best interest of the church or the neighborhood. I do think it's going to cause problems with traffic congestion, as well as it's just going to bring a energy to the residential neighborhood into a quiet, peaceful place that doesn't belong there. I do believe that this belongs somewhere more towards the city, a little bit south or more where the businesses are, and not in a residential zone. I think that this property needs to stay residential. And I know Anthony had asked if we could have people stand. I just wanted to see, could we have just a raise of hands, just to show opposition, something as simple as a raise of hands, because there's people here that they don't want to speak, and that was their whole intent in coming tonight, was just to show everyone how many are here in opposition. Is that okay?
I think you've accomplished your mission.
No? Okay. Oh, great. Awesome. Thank you.
Greetings. Thank you for spending your time tonight to help us go through this process. I'm David Leo. I've been involved in the Troy community since late 1960s. When my family moved here from Detroit. We have still family residence at the southeast end of Troy, where I'm a guardian and conservator of my parents' home. And then I went to school at Walsh College, right next to Zion Christian Church. Got my master's in accounting there. And spent a lot of years in the community through school, Troy baseball boosters, all the things you can think of in the community, as well as probably lived in a lot of these restaurants locally. So we do appreciate the community. I think I've spent more time in the Troy corridor than almost anywhere else in the country. So we do care greatly about this community and about the opportunities here. I've been a member of Zion Christian Church for 32 years, served on the board, the church board, for over 12. And I was one of the people not too happy with this process moving forward, so I'll just give you that on the table first. But also as a community, and speaking on behalf of a number of people who are here today and who couldn't make it as well, we do not want to see any rezoning of that property in any way different than what it is. It's residential type zoning like that should be for church, homes, schools, not for nursing facilities. There's many more appropriate locations for those types of facilities. We expect, as Anthony and a few others mentioned, that this would be disruptive to the community in regards to the resources that it would absorb, the water issues, but beyond that, the EMT issues. Would you have to hire additional personnel to support facilities like this as you bring them in? What about the lighting and noise? Are ordinances being written to cover or to adjust, to prepare, or to help the residents of the city be protected from those types of things, of the excess lighting, excess noise, excess activity, and the traffic flow. In regards to the traffic flow, we're also in disagreement with having them using the church access. We think they should, if a situation like this was ever developed to go forward, that it should have its own access point and entrance point. So we want to make sure that those kind of things are addressed as you go forward and review these plans. We think the additional stresses would cause a huge negative effect to the community. We ask you, please do not recommend this project to go forward in any form for either rezoning or other. This facility does not meet what I believe the community is looking for. As Anthony mentioned also, the property to the south, you have that park, the deeded property. And I think that will also create somewhat of a negative effect as you try to develop that property. So consider that. The parking that's going to be affected, the green space loss at Zion, and a number of other areas. So again, we ask you reject any future consideration of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leo.
Keep my pen.
Anyone else wants to comment?
My name is Rida Megali. I've been living in Troy for 27 years right now, and I have so many pages of people against this rezoning. I think it's really going to have a negative effect on the city. You just recently approved this new building, the apartment building, which will attract younger generation, will attract more professionals. Troy is really, I don't want to say it's aging, but a good number of us are really getting up in the age. We would like to have younger people move, professional move to the city, and having this kind of facility across the street, it's really have a negative and confusing to any younger person who would like to move to Troy. It is not the right place for it. I'm not against the project, but it is not in the right place here. That's all. Where would I submit this?
You can give those to the staff, planning director.
Thank you.
It appears to be the same.
Anyone else on this item? If not, bring it back to the Planning Commission for discussion.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes, Mr. Hudson.
I don't think I'm going to be able to support this proposition, and let us go in a little memory lane for a little bit. 7.5 years ago, this Planning Commission spent 2 years looking at the Visioning Committee of Troy, having public hearings, and 2 years of discussion with various peoples and professionals regarding our master plan, which had not been revised for approximately 20 years. City Council, after we made a recommendation of this master plan, approved it. And we're going now to the 6th year of that plan. The master plan is nothing more than a roadmap that the City of Troy envisions for the use of its land and its facilities. And it's interesting, in the master plan, if anybody ever cared to take a look at it, it talks about single-family residences. And it says, in the single-family areas, non-residential uses shall be considered only when the use is clearly incidental and ancillary to the single-family residential, or when the use is a park, school, or other community-oriented use. So let's take a tour down the Livernois corridor, starting at the north from Waddles. If we started on the east, we're going to see that we have 2 subdivisions, single family. We then have a Greek church. We have another subdivision. And we have just recently approved by the City Council a multi-residential apartment facility. Going across Town Center Drive, you have the City of Troy facilities. City Hall, Community Center, parks, recreational areas. Let's go to the east side of Livernois now. We have a Montessori school, which was in existence before the master plan. We have the Waddles Historical Home, Walsh College, which was there before we revised the master plan. Then we have Zion Church, which is a permitted use in a residential area. And the rest is all single-family residential with a large parcel which is unoccupied at the present time. The closest inclusion you have of any commercial facility is an office building at the corner of Big Beaver in Livernois, stopping at Heartland Avenue, which was in existence before we did the master plan. You take a look at all of this, and the one common element is a single-family residential. We'll note that the proposed use of a convalescent center is not even discussed in our ordinance, and by no stretch of the imagination can it be termed a residential unit in any fashion. I think to protect the integrity of the residences, which is paramount in our master plan, that I can't support this.
Thank you. Anyone else on the Planning Commission like to comment? Mr. Gottlieb.
I just wanted to acknowledge the effort that the people that came to this meeting have put forth, and I recognize arranging babysitters and taking time off other obligations. We can't make any type of decision without good input, and I really appreciate the fact that there were individuals that felt comfortable enough to come before us, speak their mind, and share their feelings and opinions and concerns so that it would help us make good decisions. So it was just good to see the community come out and voice their opinion. So thank you.
You're just causing the meeting to go longer. It's a public meeting. We don't need the applause. Thank you. Anyone else on the commission want to offer an opinion? Mr. Shepke.
Yes, I've lived in Troy 44 years now, and maybe about a half a mile away from this present location. You know, we're not talking about an undeveloped piece of land or a hard to develop piece of land. We're talking about something that was sold to Zion Church for their own use and for the enhancement and betterment of the congregation. And to cut off part of their property, to flip it and to put a commercial business complex. And I'm not saying there's not a need for a facility like this, but I think it's a poor fit, especially when it's right close to Town Center Drive and to our city complex. I just think that this is so out of place. I have a hard time even grasping why a facility like this should even be considered, but I'm one of many, and I'm willing to keep an open mind, but right now I think this is the wrong usage and the wrong place, and I'm a great believer in protecting the neighborhoods. Those are our biggest investments, our homes, and that's where we chose to live, raise our families, and have our loved ones gather around us. And to anything to me that is going to interfere with this is wrong, and I oppose it also.
Anyone else? Mr. Savidan, what type of direction are you seeking from the Planning Commission?
Well, the potential applicant is before us this evening seeking direction in terms of what do you think of the concept plan? What do you think of the potential rezoning application? I've heard 2 planning commissioners speak so far?
Yes, 2 offered an opinion.
2 have offered an opinion, 3? The applicant's here. Perhaps the applicant has some more pointed questions. Again, with the conditional rezoning, any conditions have to be voluntarily offered by the applicant. They cannot be extracted from the city. So the applicant's had an opportunity to listen to a number of residents comment on the application. Perhaps they've got some new information to add. The hope is to have the applicant to take away, some information from this meeting to help them make an informed decision moving forward. And perhaps that decision is as simple as, do we proceed with their conditional rezoning or not? Or perhaps it's more complicated to the effect that we want to do this, but we've got to sharpen our pencils and maybe change the design or rethink some of the layout.
Thank you. I wanted to ask, do we have any other applications where a commercial facility like this is accessed off of an internal driveway on an adjoining property? That's what it appeared to be for me anyway.
I'd have to think about it and look into that.
Okay. Let me just ask the applicant, did you wish to respond to any of these comments that were made tonight?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking
We would like to thank the,
Speak right into the mic.
sorry, we would really like to thank the community for coming out and voicing their opinions on the proposed plan for many reasons. We feel that this does help benefit the community by keeping its seniors and aged community members close to the residences, and it had a good intent of sharing with the Zion Church. With me also is Steve Sorensen with PEA Engineering, and he would like to talk a little bit more about the traffic concerns, just to give a little more information to the community.
Thank you.
Steve Sorensen, PEA, 2430 Rochester Court, Troy, Michigan. As stated in Mr. Carlisle's report, a traffic study would be required, and we would enter into that if it's so decided to move forward and proceed with the application. The purpose of this design, and I was a part of it, was in sharing an access point with the church, provide an ingress-egress to split and use that existing driveway without having to add another curb cut on Livernois and create more conflict. To me, that seems to address, at least in the best of my ability, some of the traffic concerns, and the traffic study could, address the volume or change in volume from this point on. But there have been multiple plans that have gone forward and talked about with the church, one of them being one that had a separate driveway. And it just didn't seem to be appropriate and would seem to be more of an impact to the community than the plan that we have brought forward as a concept. And we do appreciate, your guys' input as we consider moving forward. There are large buffers. I know that this use has a 50-foot required buffer adjacent to residential, and we're able to hit all of that on all sides, except for along the shared access drive to the north. And the intent of that is, it's going to be more of a shared access and shared parking. There could be a potential parking arrangement, between the facilities, and in that point, a 50-foot wide landscape island may not seem appropriate for what that access drive would ultimately end up being. And the church is not necessarily a subdivision. It is zone single family, so it does fall under that requirement of a 50-foot buffer, but it's a little different, and we do hit the 50-foot buffer on the other sides, at least in this concept plan.
Just a general comment, and I do appreciate all of the feedback tonight. And one of the major things we're trying to accomplish with respect to long-term care and short-term rehab is not to make these facilities institutional, make them residential. We design them to look residential, and they are in communities, and our communities we're in, it is very involved with communities, from the employees who work there to the volunteers that work there as well. They're people from the community, and placing these facilities in commercial areas creates the appearance of institutional care, which we are in this country striving to move away from. So we have developed these facilities in close connection with neighborhoods and in other communities, and we have a good working relationship with those neighborhoods. We have relationships with our churches too, where actually we have churches that meet in some of our facilities. We do want to be part of the community, and when you're taking care of the most frail and persons that are elderly, you need community support. So I guess I'm asking is it's kind of a rethink of how you approach this type of care, and we certainly would work with taking into consideration the traffic, the noise. We've done those types of things. We've had it's not 24/7 cars coming in and out. There's it's not ambulances coming with sirens blaring. No, it doesn't work. It's not emergency care. So you're not going to have some of these things you think you may have. We do have employees that would change shifts, yes. That does occur 3 times a day, but that it diminishes a great deal at nighttime. There's not a great use. We have facilities in other communities where we have made sure that lighting doesn't go past certain areas. We've worked with neighbors on those things. We've also agreed to quiet areas for employees in parking lots where we don't let our employees make excessive noise or hang out in our parking lots. We've done things to accommodate, some of the concerns that I'm hearing here, and we are welcome members of those communities, and I do think there's an opportunity here to address some of these things and mitigate some of the concerns you may have. I'd also ask if we're going to proceed further, is we do have facilities that are in the area that anybody here, we could arrange for tours and to come see those and how they impact those areas and the feel of those, the vibe that those give. I think the vibe, it might be, I heard, this gives, when you see these facilities, they're different than what you think they are, and they are a sense of home, and they're home for these residents, short-term and for long-term as well. And we certainly would provide that opportunity for the community. Anybody here who'd want to come see a facility and tour it, we would do that without hesitation.
I just have one question. Am I correct in that you entered into this purchase agreement with the Zion Church? Is that agreement subject to the rezoning?
Yes, it is subject to rezoning. That is true. I will add one other thing here, is that nursing home beds are based upon certificate of need, and certificate of need beds in Michigan are very rare. We had to fight 2 years to get these beds, believe it or not. We thought Troy was the best place to put them. We don't have, if this project were not to go forward, unfortunately, those beds would just disappear. Michigan has changed their bed needs based upon declining populations in 2010, and actually Oakland County is overbedded now based upon population trends, but we're not seeing that in the demand for certificate of need doesn't necessarily reflect demand, it reflects population. And we're seeing demand for this type of care, especially for, we have 60 private rooms here with private baths, and that's what people want when they're in short-term rehab. They want to have their own, like a hospital, their own room, no bathrooms in their rooms, like a home, and that's what this is. So these beds were fought for very, very ardently by my company, and if this project were not to go forward, the opportunity for those job creation, the tax paying here as well, this opportunity in the community does go away. It doesn't come back. Essentially, it evaporates. So it is, a very important decision that is impactful to this type of use in your community.
Thank you.
Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Stratt.
I just would like to make a couple of comments, if I could. I'm on a fence either way. But we had passed on Adams Road a similar facility that was 2-story. That was, in my opinion, I voted against it. This facility, however, has a lot different constraints and also advantages. As I see it, to the north, there's the church and the church parking lot. And to the south, there's actually no residential. It's the park environment. So really, the adjacent neighbors are not affected by this directly, in my opinion. There is maybe to the east a very slight amount, but other than that, I see that this fits right in my opinion. Number one, it is residential in character. It was broken up into segments where the other was just a linear 500-foot building. It looked very terrible. I really was very opposed to it, and it was 2-story. This is 1-story, and it's broken up into little quads, which to me adds an advantage. So I'm kind of on a borderline. I just don't know where else. All of our sites are going to be problem sites. all of our sites, whatever we do. And one of the key things that I'm concerned about is that, you know, we have to look at what is best also for the entire city, not necessarily for a specific person or an individual or a group or an association, although they're important and I want to protect them as well. So I'm confused here. I'm not confused, but I'm somewhat on the borderline. I'm not sure which direction I'll vote, but I see some real advantages to it being in this location, in my opinion. But I'm just one commissioner, and I thought I'd let you know.
Thank you.
I'm the only one that said anything for it, I guess. But I'm not sure I'm saying anything for it.
Mr. Sensi.
No, I sort of like to echo Mr. Straight's opinion. The devil's all in the detail. And again, I understand where the residents are coming from. Change is difficult. It would impact their lives. It could impact their lives. But there really is a lot of information that we yet need to determine on what the impact would be on the residents. The traffic study, so forth. The utilities. There's just so many things that need to be addressed that I too, I guess I like what Mr. Strassy is on the fence, but I'd like to say I'm still open-minded. I'd like to see more information, and I understand where the residents are coming from. I have empathy for where you're coming from. Nobody likes change, but there may be some opportunity here for our community that this may benefit in the long run, and that's what I'm waiting to see. So, like Mr. Strassett, I'm on the fence. I'm not for it or against it, but I do think I'd like to see more detail and have the opportunity to study this and get the recommendation from all our consultants on the different issues.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add one other thing if I could piggyback on. This is what they're coming before us is a conditional approval. That means that everything that's on that plan has to actually be built and abide by. And it cannot be changed, and they can't add any additional space or anything unless they have come back to us again. But they cannot add anything or modify it from whatever they submit to us under a conditional rezoning. So that I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that as well. So all the items that they're talking about in terms of their, I didn't realize the advantages that the presenter presented as far as the purpose of having a single driveway rather than having individual driveways. That was a compromise, but that made a lot of sense to me. There are a lot of points that I don't know what's happening, and they have not submitted a plan. So right now, we don't know what we're talking about. We're talking hypothetical. So I'm still on the fence as well, saying that.
Mr. Tagle.
Yes, for the petitioner's benefit, I'm also in a neutral position right now. As was said, a lot is going to transpire between now and if you do decide to submit as far as the details, the things that you heard from the reports that you've gotten from the audience. So there's a lot of the technical details that need to be worked out. And then again, I want to just think about this as far as the scale of this building and how does it fit in with the streetscape as Mr. Hudson had talked about. So again, there's a lot of information we've got to pour through and look over and weigh against the concerns that the citizens have as well. So just wanted to let you know that.
Mr. Krett.
I thought I might as well comment too. I'm similar to some of the members. I'm neutral right now. Here's what I see on the plus side of having a unit like this built. One, it does look residential. This is not a medical building like across the street on Livernois. It's not a commercial business that sees patients on, coming in and out. This is not an outpatient situation. This is a home for people. What I'd like is more information. I didn't do my extensive work on this yet, but what I'd like to see is we do have, I think it's classifications. How do we classify a convalescent center is different from assisted living home? And are our assisted living homes, are any of them near or adjacent to residential properties? And, are they asked, I'm just not sure about how this zoning as a convalescent center fits into our master plan, since we really don't have that distinction in it. So I'd like to do more work on it. I'm not just rule it out, but I'm not going to be in favor of it either. Just, I need more information.
Mr. Sabaden or Mr. Carlisle, are convalescence centers in the zoning ordinance the same as assisted living centers? I thought they were. But
They're not. They're considered more intense. There's a higher level of care provided, so they're considered. That's the reason why they need a rezoning, is because they're more commercial in nature because of the higher level of care.
In addition, the state classifies them differently, and a convalescence center requires a certificate of need, while assisted living facilities don't necessarily require a certificate of need. So it's just a higher level of state regulation on convalescent centers.
Mr. Stratt.
I'd like to, if it's approved, they have to actually provide the services that they say they are going to provide. Is that not correct? So there's no deviation.
Yeah, that's what if those conditions are offered by the applicant, and anything that deviates from those conditions as approved would be grounds to revoke their conditional rezoning.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Tagle.
A question for our consultant and our director. If you looked at this building from the outside, would you see anything different, any activities different than you would in those two different models of convalescent or assisted care? I mean, what I'm trying to understand is what happens inside the walls versus, are we going to see something different in the site or around the building as far as types of activities?
I think the primary difference, and I'm by no means an expert, but I believe the primary difference would be a somewhat higher degree of staffing and somewhat higher degree of medical service provided inside the building. But in terms of general activity, it would be comparable, just a higher degree, because the residents have a higher need for care.
Thank you.
I just had one other question. In terms of the assisted living facility that we approved, wasn't it on a 3-acre site? Or a little over 3 acres?
I think it's slightly over 3 acres.
This is a 9-acre site. And
Correct.
the number of beds are comparable, are they, or not?
This has more beds, but I have to confirm that, what the total number. I don't remember what the assisted living had.
The assisted living was
Two,
like
I think.
2-story.
Yeah, 2-story too, right, yeah. Okay. Yes, Mr. Sabaden.
Just a couple of comments. One, there's 50, 60-ish people here, obviously have some type of vested interest in this, or at least they feel they do. This is by no means required as part of this, but I think I speak for the Planning Commission when I say that we strongly encourage you to reach out to the applicants. It's one thing to listen to them at a microphone. It's another thing to meet them in a more neutral, more comfortable setting and actually have dialogue and conversation. You have an opportunity here to get some contact information. You heard at least 2 representatives of homeowners associations. They're on the sign-in sheet. I'm sure they'd be happy to come up to you after this item's done and introduce themselves and provide you with contact information. Again, it's not required, but I think all the Planning Commission would agree it's strongly encouraged, and it will go a long way towards hearing these people's concerns and maybe tweaking the design in such a way that it's going to improve the design. That's my first comment. My second comment is Mr. Hudson did a great job of summarizing the master plan, and and I'm not going to repeat what he said except for one thing. One of the underlying tenets, and the most important underlying tenets of the master plan, is protecting single-family residential neighborhoods. So the challenge here is going to be the applicant listening and coming up with a design that incorporates, what an appropriate scale, an appropriate design, height, massing, parking lot, number of rooms, et cetera, that minimizes the impact, potential impact on single-family residential, and gives the Planning Commission something to kind of wrap their hands around so that they're confident that this does not negatively impact single-family residential. So if you decide to move forward on this, that's, one of the Planning Commission said the devil's in the details. That's what they're talking about. is not negatively impacting single-family residential neighborhoods.
Thank you. I fully concur with that. Perhaps the gentleman who spoke for the church, could you come forward again, please? On this item that Mr. Savinet was just talking about, would you be willing to host a meeting at your church for the applicant to discuss these issues with the people who are so concerned about it?
Well, we could certainly offer the venue for sure. I'm not sure what Sienna Healthcare is planning to do or interested in doing, but we can certainly provide the space, yes.
Right. Well, you've heard the concern of many of the commissioners here, too. I also just strongly recommend that the applicants, especially in a controversial issue such as we have here, we've had several, it is critical that the applicants speak to those. Now, you're not a disinterested party.
No.
You're definitely interested. And I also think that perhaps some more communication, even within your church. We've heard many people here from the church voice concerns about it, and I guess I would just ask, how widely communicated was this to the church members?
You didn't have to bring that up. That has nothing to do with what, we're not involved in that.
Yeah. We're not involved, but I'm
I understand. I understand.
It's obvious.
That's not.
That the answer to that question would be different from multiple people.
Let's not
Please,
do
ma'am.
that.
Sorry. No. Okay, thank you very much.
You don't need to bring that up. Yeah. Let's adjourn the meeting.
No, I just wanted to offer my opinion. I too think I need a lot more information, and I think the plan could work. I guess the applicant is willing to go to the ZBA for the buffer as the plan now exists, because you do need a 50-foot buffer, even on the church side. That's still residential property. So, no, I would definitely have to have more information. So, unless there's any further comment from the Planning Commission, oh yes, Mr. Shepke.
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I think in order for this to be a win-win situation, well, we need to have more communication. This, to me, looking at it, it just doesn't fit the area, but I think that having the applicant present, in all fairness to him, have him present what he wants to build and a little bit more detail and the traffic studies and everything, that'll make us all feel a lot better. But it still surprises me that a church can knock off part of their property and have it rezoned for any kind of endeavor other than for religious use. That's kind of shocking to me.
Mr. Gottlieb.
Mr. Chairman, I just wondered if the question you asked earlier about a shared access road applied to Athens High School and the church there with the entrance off of Waddles. Is that what you're referring to?
That might be something similar, yes. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the next item, but thank you all for coming.
Take a 5-minute. Sure, Chairman.
We'll take a 5-minute recess. If you're not here on the next item, would you please move out into the hall? Thank you.
Come on, Mr. Chairman, get a hold of this meeting here.
It's under control
Who's asking about public control?
Brian's helping out. He's shepherding him out the door. Get out of here. Move it.
The next item is number 9, Planned Unit Development Application, file number PUD 008A, proposed Big Beaver Place, north side of Big Beaver, east of John R., section 24, currently zoned PUD number 8, Planned Unit Development number 8, district.
You
You can't close the doors, so if they just move up.
We can close the doors if there's a sign out there that indicates there's a meeting.
Is there a sign out there? I'm not sure.
I believe there is.
Okay, very good.
I'm going to introduce this really quick, and I'm going to go double check there's a sign. I know there's a sign.
Okay, thank you.
This Big Beaver Place PUD was approved in 2006. You see the location here on the aerial photo. It's located on the north side of Big Beaver, just east of John R. The property was zoned R1E, one-family residential, but I think you'd agree, given the fact that there's commercial and office and both to the west and across Big Beaver, that it probably isn't going to be developed single-family residential anytime soon. In fact, it lends itself very well to some form of commercial and/or mixed-use development. So the PUD that was approved in 2006 included retail in the front, including one drive-through restaurant in the western portion, as well as, I believe, 22 or 23 residential units to the north. And the applicant, again, when it was approved in 2006, the economy tanked, the property was not developed, and what we have is a piece of land with the economy turning around. There's interest back in this property again, and the applicant feels that they have a viable product. It's mixed use with retail in the front and residential in the back. And what we're looking for this evening is to kind of just really summarize this. This is similar to the last application. They're kind of kicking the tires here and seeing what the Planning Commission feels. We believe that it's consistent to the concept development plan that was approved in 2006, but was never constructed. As the Assistant City Attorney pointed out this evening at about 6 o'clock, the concept development plan has actually expired. It's good for 5 years, so it expired in like 2011 or 2012. But that's not a hindrance to this. We can bundle up the public hearing for the PDP as well as the CDP together. It's not going to cost any more time or any more heartburn. It is a technicality that Mr. Motz, I appreciate Mr. Motz pointing out to me so that we have our facts together. With that being said, Mr. Carlisle is going to summarize the concept drawings.
Thank you. So, as Director Savinant noted, this was an approved concept plan and a rezoning to PUD done in 2007. And the site is located on the north side of Big Beaver, just east of John R. When you, in the PUD process under the ordinance, there's 3 steps. There's the concept plan, which is essentially the rezoning of the property under this concept of what the proposed development is going to be. At that point, then they go to the preliminary development plan, which essentially is a preliminary site plan approval process. And then the 3rd step is the final development plan. The preliminary development plan still has to go to City Council for their ultimate adoption. So right now we're at the stage of ensuring the compliance with the concept development plan and then proceeding moving forward with the preliminary site plan application. So tonight the applicant's looking for confirmation that the concept plan they've submitted is consistent with the old concept plan, as well as direction in the site plan moving forward to the submittal of their planned their site plan application. So the 2007 concept plan that was approved included 23 two-story townhomes, 2 cluster retail buildings of approximately 15,000 square feet, and a drive-through use and quick service restaurants that approximates 3,500 square feet. The revised plan submitted by the applicant includes 10 two-story townhomes, two clustered retail developments of approximately 13,000 square feet and a drive-through and quick service restaurant of approximately 4,400 feet. In comparisons between the two development plans, the most significant revision to the plans is the matter of intensity, both intensity for the square footage of the commercial as well as the intensity of the amount of residential being proposed by the development. They are reducing the number of residential units by 13, and they are reducing the overall retail square footage by approximately 2,000 square feet. However, when we review the concept plans in totality to each other, we do note that they do have, we do find that they are consistent in terms of the development concept. They are both mixed-use developments that include both residential as well as commercial retail uses on one site. In addition, both development plans do have common site features and amenities, and these include a pedestrian plaza, pedestrian access from Big Beaver, outdoor seating, and use of naturalized stormwater management, including the use of bioswales. However, ultimately, it's in the purview of the Planning Commission if they deem this, these two plans are consistent. If these two plans are consistent, the applicant will submit a revised site plan for consideration as part of the preliminary development plan that ultimately, again, will have to go to City Council for approval. We did do a very cursory review of the site plan as submitted, and we do have some generalized comments that we would like to share. This site plan has been reviewed by the city's traffic consultant as well as the city engineer. The most significant concern is in regards to the access drive, specifically the west access drive to the site. The location of the west access drive aligns with the crossover of Big Beaver. The approved 2007 concept plan also showed the same alignment. However, the traffic consultant as well as the city engineer notes that MDOT standards now require that that be offset from the crossover. So they will be required to move that access point either a little farther to the west or a little farther to the east. One of the concerns raised by the traffic consultant was if they move it farther to the east, it might become in conflict with the other access point on the east. And so the site might be better served with one access point. This is just an issue that came to light fairly recently, and the applicant will have to look at that and examine that moving forward. In addition, there has been concern, there was concern about the size and orientation of the parking and circulation. We do note that all the circulation lanes are undersized, and a majority or a significant amount of the parking spaces are actually undersized as well. So they need to make sure that those meet the requirements of the ordinance when they resubmit. A secondary concern is in regards to circulation and specifically potential one-way circulation around the site, and specifically the traffic circulation around the drive-through and the quick-serve restaurant on the east end of the site. In terms of site arrangement, a site arrangement might be altered if they do have to eliminate one of the curb cuts, but that's something that the applicant will have to consider moving forward. We do note that the residential portion of the site lacks significant detail. The applicant has not provided any elevations or any details about what they're proposing on the residential proportion. We do note, since this is a mixed-use approved PUD, that the residential portion really needs to be integrated in much greater compliance with what they're showing in regards to with the commercial development moving forward to make it one cohesive development. In addition, the applicant has not indicated the proposed phasing of the development. We assume, based on their submittal, that the commercial aspect would come first with the residential as a second phase. However, that has not been clarified by the applicant. Lastly, in regards to the residential, the applicant has showed a secured gateway. We just need more information about what they're actually proposing for that. And fire is going to have to ensure that they have access, adequate access, even with the secured gateway moving forward. The applicant has submitted elevations for the commercial aspect of the development. We do note that though this is not in the Big Beaver form-based district, we would still like the applicant to meet the form-based district design standards, which are set forth in section 5.04. Of particular concern, we do find the elevations attractive, but of particular concern is the use of a curtain wall on the front elevation. And we do note that we want to ensure that ground story activation is met and there's actually transparency along that front elevation and it's not covered up by a curtain wall or window signage. So as part of the agreement, we want to make sure that there is transparency with those commercial elevations. So in summary, the Planning Commission is to determine if the revised concept plan is consistent with the 2007 plan, and if so, give direction to the applicant proceeding, moving forward with the resubmittal of the site plan application. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Sabadat? I have one. I don't understand. What is the curtain wall the same as glass or fenestration?
I'm going to toss that up to the architects.
Yes.
There's two types of systems. A storefront system is a system with less structural need. It's like a first or second floor. When you get into taller buildings, it's the same aluminum framing system, but it's called curtain wall, and it's more stout, can stand the lateral loads from the winds and things like that.
So it's more substantial.
It's more substantial, but it's still can be a glass system, curtain wall or storefront.
Thank you. Is there any more questions for Mr. Sabanen or Mr. Carlisle? If not, can the applicant please come forward and sign in?
I'm Brad Boyer with URS Corporation. I'm the architect on the project.
I'm Jack Burke, and I'm the applicant representing the developer.
Do you have anything to add?
I guess just in terms of answering the question, Brad perhaps can address if you'd like some more input on the curtain wall issue in terms of it's a feature that we chose in terms of what the front of the building will look like to the public. And we still have options in terms of what we might do there, but we thought it represented something in terms of a current, modern, attractive look, and consistent with some of the other new developments that have drawn up along the Big Beaver corridor. And it was just a way of attracting. It's not shown up there on the screen right now, but I think that it's in some of the information that was presented, wasn't it?
I do have some colored elevations that if we wanted to look at just to get a little more clarification on it. And as Mr. Tagle did say, the only difference between a storefront and a curtain wall, it's the same type of system. Storefront has a limitation of height that you can go to hold back the lateral loads of the wind. A curtain wall can go a little bit higher.
So that's for the commercial section in the front?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
And to address Mr. Carlisle's comment, we did not present elevations yet for the residential because we wanted to get some feedback from the planning commission in terms of is the overall concept going to meet with your approval, and we will then for the next meeting and for review have the full elevations of all of the residential as well as all the commercial, and address some of the concerns that were brought up in the comments in terms of the engineering of the site in terms of traffic and where the access points might be or not, what we'll do with that.
One other question regarding the consultant's report.
Just to respond to some of the comments that were made in his report, there was one thing that he didn't specify right off the bat, but the parking, the comments that he has associated with the parking, there were in the original PUD there were 100. You're stating there's 163. Of that, 46 of those were part of the garages for the residential. So when you're changing the ratio of residential to the commercial that we're proposing, or the retail we're proposing, we've actually increased the parking for the retail and left, and as far as the ratio goes, we've left the same ratio for the residential. So our total, it says 111, but I believe, not counting the residential, we're up at 126.
I have 126 in my report, so.
I think he had the numbers transposed. Well, I don't know. That's when we looked at it, the numbers didn't match.
Yeah, the total is 126, I think.
It's in the report, 126.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's right.
Yeah.
Great, okay.
But we originally had 111, not counting the residential in the previous PUD.
And the other question he rose was the phasing. When are you?
The phasing as far as construction phase?
Yes, for both.
We would look to develop, our idea right now is that it would go in terms of the development work, everything required for the entire development would be constructed at the outset. The initial construction phase would be for the retail project that's going to be there, and the development work for the townhouses would be in place, and then as those sales occur, those will go forward.
Okay, such as that's all, essentially all the utilities and infrastructure, that would all go in right away, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Steven.
Speaking of this issue, this is really similar in layout with the Big Beaver Kilmer PUD, which is just half a mile to the east, and even one drive-through, retail in the front, and residential behind. And one of the things that we did to kind of protect the neighborhood was require that the infrastructure be put in at the same time as a commercial, just like they're proposing. I think that works really well. That gives us assurances that if the residential may take a while, but it's coming. And I think that's our concern. And we also, within the PUD agreement, required them to put in the wall and the landscaping along the north so that the impact on the residential would be minimal. So that's in. So we got the retail in, the landscaping to shield it, and then all we're waiting for is the missing piece, which is the residential. So that'll work out well. I think we'd be seeking that. I agree with Mr. Carlisle that one of the things, this is negotiated, one of the things that would really be kind of hard on in terms of negotiation would be the transparency issue, that the windows, we don't want it signed, we don't want it covered up with vinyl. I mean, we're learning lessons here as we go. You know, the old fool you once, fool you twice thing. We don't want to go down that road, so we put in the PUD agreement that windows and doors have to be functioning and open and visible and not opaque and all that good stuff. So I just wanted to share that with and Mr. Stratt, when before us 4 or 5 months ago, Robertson Brothers for Big Beaver Kilmer PUD, they came before us with 2 additional units. Mr. Stratt raised a really good point. We want this to be integrated development, but we also want to make sure that the impacts on the residential are minimal. So the design of the residential needs to be such design that it is consistent, integrated with the retail in the front, but also is not impactful with the residential to the north. So that's the challenge.
Compatible.
Still compatible, right?
Yes, Mr. Hudson.
I'm looking, you've got a couple floor plans here of the site. I'm not sure which one we're looking at, but mine says Circle 11, pardon?
It was the before and after, so
Okay, hopefully I'm looking at the after. It looks like a narrow hourglass, and you've got some outdoor seating between the 2 restaurants.
Are we looking up?
That's it. That's the old one.
I'm looking at a different one, but I guess that's pretty close.
This one or that one?
Pardon me?
He's just changed it.
He's looking at a floor plan more so than the site plan.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, you want the building floor
Let me
plan?
express my concern. I like the idea of the outdoor seating. I think that's a wonderful tie. And I'm thinking if you wanted to tie in the residence with a retail, maybe a little more expansiveness on that courtyard, in essence, through the back. But you had one, I'm still confused, but in any event, you had one diagram with it looked like trees or umbrellas or
Some
something.
landscaping in there, probably?
Maybe that's landscaping. Well, that's a different one that I was looking at, but nevertheless. Are those trees or are those umbrellas?
Yeah, the circles that are there representing some landscaping, so they'd be small ornamental trees or
How wide will then, at the narrowest point, be the walk?
the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Just as an estimate, from looking at that, I think the narrowest point might be 10 feet.
10 feet?
So it's coming down to a 10-foot corridor.
That's my concern. When we did the Monarch development, there was an alley. I'm being generous when I call it an alley between the bank and the retail establishments in there. And it looks like a long, dark tunnel. And I'm hoping that this won't have that appearance when you develop this site. It's going to be warm and inviting and maybe follow through.
Yeah, I think that's that was kind of the point of the hourglass shape, is to kind of funnel you in. And it's that link between the north and south of the retail, and also that connection back to the residential to the north. So so on either side of that walkway, we have what could be outdoor seating.
That looks better. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, that came up as a result of our discussions with the planning director and.
Good idea.
We didn't want to push we don't want to crowd that space either, because it's going to be desired space for any type of restaurant or cafe that might go in there. We're trying to create a good environment to sit, eat.
A lot of people that linger.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I like the idea.
Has everyone got one?
Thank you.
Oh, gee, thanks.
Yes, Mr. Tago.
I like the concept and the site plan, especially the way you've brought the buildings together and creating the courtyard. But I've heard some of the comments from the report, saying that the drive aisles might be a little narrow, parking may not be as deep as it should be. The challenge is don't lose the concept and just put in more asphalt. So and that is a challenge. The driveway, for example, that the traffic engineer says shouldn't line up. I think it would be horrible to move that too far east and now start to destroy this. It's going to start to tear apart the concept of the site.
And that's what I was talking with, just before we came up to the subject, I was talking that with Ben, and we need to consult with the traffic engineer, because I think there's some question of what he means by that, where that alignment actually falls. It may be that it just needs to move over about 10 feet just so that alignment's a little better. The center line, from what it says in the comment that he has, is the center line of our site access road is too far to the east. It doesn't line up with, or it can't be past the nose of the turn. Okay. So we need
if it's a tweak, that's fine. If it's a major move, I think
and that's also a concern for the developer, that if it's a major turn change, that we can't have that access point in that area, then this may not, it's vital to have that left turn access coming into the site.
Left turn out of the...
Coming from Big Beaver. So you're getting the eastbound traffic to have an easy access rather than going farther on down.
Yeah, but we have some of those that are actually hazardous. It looked like what you were trying to...
That's the intent. I believe that's the intent, is that is to not allow direct left turn crossing Big Beaver into the site.
Right.
I think it actually is a standard now of MDOT that they don't allow that. So we will have to confirm that, obviously, with the traffic engineer and the traffic consultant to moving forward.
Yes, Mr. Craig.
Quick thought. At the drive-in restaurants on the west side of the property, there are two separate restaurants, I take it? One has a drive-through, one does not? Okay. Just want to make sure that line was definitely two different restaurants. Okay. Yeah, and I could see the traffic situation where you're slightly off center now. I know that has to go through MDOT, and that's a whole different issue. But right now, like to get into Joe Cool's, which is not far from here, a similar situation exists. Right. And you do have to sometimes really floor it to get across 3 lanes and make it, and that's probably why they don't want that.
In some instances where there's no traffic lights, it is very difficult to get across there.
Yeah, is there a traffic light?
Yeah, there is one here at this instance.
Oh, there's a signal there?
There is a traffic signal at that.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought that little symbol was. Okay, then what's the problem?
But we don't know.
Yeah, okay.
In front of you tonight, but as it came up as a comment.
I don't see a scale here right now.
Good.
Some of these issues to make sure that what we do, but they're looking forward for us to do what.
Sir, you're going to have to speak in the microphone, otherwise it won't come off on the tape.
I was mentioning that we will have to meet and go through some of these details just to make sure that we comply with their requirements, and what's being asked of us is viable in terms of workable for clientele.
So, Mr. Stratt?
Do you have the leases already for the 2 restaurants in the major area?
No.
You're anticipating that they're going to be identical?
Excuse me? I couldn't understand your question.
They're going to be identical in footprint?
No.
Well,
No,
you're showing them as identical, so you don't know that, right?
No, I think they were slightly offset.
You're talking about the 2 buildings that were clustered together?
Yeah, you mirror imaged.
Yeah, you
just made a mirror image of the 2, and that's going to be damn hard for you to have 2 clients that are going to be identical for that. You're going to make some modifications internally, I'm assuming then.
That line of where the tenants are, because what they're looking at is having 2 tenants in each building, each one of those buildings. Potentially there could be 3. It all depends on who's coming in to rent the space.
Yeah, one of the big concerns that we have, or at least I have, is I don't want to see no offices being in the front that's covering up a window. And I noticed the way, and I looked at this particularly to see what your footprint was, your exterior wall treatment was, to see where offices could be put, so that they're not in front of a window, which is what we've had before. Like Mr. Sabaton said, the first time is dog bites, it's dog's fault. And we're not going to approve that. Hopefully, again, the answer with Mike, the tunnel vision is really proportionate to the height of the building. So this is a 2-story, but it seems like it is proportionally okay to me anyway.
Okay.
But it's based on the height as well. It could, if it were a 5-story, that would be really a tunnel. regardless of what the width was.
Mr. Chairman, the water feature that you have just south of the residential, is that going to be wet all the time, or is that just basically when it rains and till the system takes the
It's going to
water?
do a dual purpose. It's supposed to be a wet, the
Should be
intent is to
water
have
in.
water at all times for a feature. Creates a feature as a buffer between the residential and the retail. But as the rate, it's going to also serve as stormwater detention as well.
So that was my question. Is there an outlet? Is there an outlet to that basin? Or does it infiltrate into
Right
the-
now, the plan is to tie in, we're using the use of bioswales and that detention to hold the required amount of water on site before it can be discharged out. And that discharge would go down to the south of to the storm drain that's under Big Beaver.
So
Right now, we're showing it coming right down the drive, that access drive on the west side, underneath that drive.
Is there a landscape plan for the pond itself? I mean, I didn't see the detail, and I was just curious if you're going to have water plants in the water or not.
Sometimes when you start introducing, maybe that'll be something we'll have to look at, but sometimes when you start introducing water plants into a pond, it comes down to a maintenance issue that if it's not maintained properly, invasive plants can also come in, and then all of a sudden you're taken away from what the actual pond how it performs. So in some instances, yes, you got to have the right type of water plants, but I'm not going to, I don't want to start saying what we would put in there right now.
There is an outlet to the basin.
Yes.
And there's going to be water standing there.
The intent is to have water there all the
I
time.
admire that. I think that's very nice, especially with the bioswales and the techniques. And may I have another question regarding the parking on the north side of the townhouses? Some of the drawings, and maybe I'm confused, it's the Fazil Khan drawings. I don't know if those are the older drawings.
Those are the older drawings. Fazil Khan is the prior plan.
Okay.
URS is the new proposed plan.
Okay, so there will be parking behind the buildings.
There are parking in the driveways to the two-stall garages that are on the backside. Right now, we're not proposing any additional parking other than the two-car parking in front of the garage.
So there will be parking in front of the garage. I was concerned about guests coming in and so forth. It just isn't, I've lived in small condos before, and there's just never enough parking, and especially when it snows. You pile snow everywhere, and the parking disappears, and something to be considered.
The intent is to have a two-stall garage with parking on the drive in front of the garage for two more additional cars.
Mr. Stratt.
Yeah, you're going to have two-car parking underneath.
Yeah, two-car parking
in the garage.
In the garage.
And two-car.
In the garage. I was going to ask, I see you've got bioswales. You refer to them as bioswales. Where are they leading to? Are you having individual catch basins in each one of these?
Well, no, they tie into each other. It's a matter of their connection drain line. So they're up at an elevation in that bioswale where as the bioswale fills up, it holds a certain capacity of water, and as it reaches its capacity, it hits a drain. It could go to the next bioswale, it'll go to the next one, and eventually they're all looped in and tied into.
So you looked at the topo and you really established the gravity.
Yeah,
pull.
there's
Right.
also there's a water retention on the north side behind to the northwest. That's a separate one from the water feature that's adjacent.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you designed it correctly. So you're going to sheet drain into that.
We have some catch basins at the curbs. In some spots, we'll have, and potentially coming into some of those swales, we might have an outlet in the curb to run off into the bioswale before it picks up.
Listen, we've had presentations in front of us just labeling bioswales, and they have catch basins in the asphalt area. They're not sheet draining anything. They're just identifying, just to identify and fool us. The other thing is, I was going to mention, it'd be kind of nice, and I don't know if you consider this, and I don't mean to be designing, but you've got a nice bridge walking across there of your waterworks there. You didn't bother to, did you do any study to link the two together?
To link which two together?
Link your actual storm drain retention pond that you got there. Underneath the drive, underneath that walkway, it could have been a nice feature.
Right now, there's a bridge that goes between the two residential
I'm
buildings.
still talking to the west.
Oh, to the west.
Yeah. I'm talking
Oh, to
connecting the
connect-
two links.
To connect the other?
Yeah.
To have a road, like a vehicular bridge?
Well, you could have that, and you could have a falls or whatever. I'm assuming that that's going to be at a lower elevation. The retention's going to be at a lower elevation.
Which will be the?
The one on the extreme northwest is going to be at a lower elevation than...
Yeah, probably would be.
It probably.
And it really-
I was wondering if you can make a feature of it, but we're looking at trying to enhance whatever we can with the bioswales and with the retention ponds and everything else. We don't like to see the rectangular ones. We like to see if we can make a sculpture effect out of them.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for, and that's something that we hope that we want to do, try to accomplish here. So we're just encouraging that. I'm not trying to design it. I am, I guess, but I...
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just one quick comment. I don't know if you've done soil borings in there, but I think the soils have a lot to do with the wet,
The water retention.
the water features. And if it's a sandy soil and there's great infiltration, you're not going to retain water. And I'm sure you accounted for that in your design. I guess that's
Yeah, and that comes down to the details of how you create the ponds, because there are some bladders that you would put down to retain the water at a certain elevation point, so that you know that you'll always have water in there.
Right.
Comes down to engineering them properly and constructing them properly.
Let's see if there are other planning commissioners who have comments or input. Okay. I was out there a couple days ago, and I noticed the billboard you have up there is the old plan. Is there plans to update that
Yes.
going forward? Thank you, because I think it's a little deceptive.
It's out of date, and we wanted to, come before you, make sure that we're
Right.
going forward, and we'll get the new sign up.
Well, I, as one planning commissioner, would think that it is, I do agree that it is consistent with the former CDP. And that, you have certainly lowered the density, but I also do want to have a reassurance that the residential will be built fairly quickly. And we'll have to see floor plans, won't we, of the residential and everything? Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Gottlieb?
I know we don't have the plan at this point, but do you have an anticipated size for these residential units?
Yeah, go ahead. The previous PUD has a size of, I think, 2,300 square feet roughly, and it is our intent to fall right in line with those numbers, whether it's 2,000, 25, somewhere in there.
That's pretty big.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Savage?
Does the planning commission agree that they're moving in the right direction and this is consistent with the formally approved?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
We didn't have all the crowds with us tonight that the applicant did, but
You're lucky.
We could ask them to come back.
You're right. They'd be probably happy to comment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We look forward to seeing you next. We'll,
Yeah. We did, right?
we'll move on to agenda item number 10, public comments for items on the current agenda. Seeing no one, we'll then go to planning commission comment. Mr. Savinak?
You were on a roll, so I didn't say anything, but planning and zoning report, you didn't ask me for the planning and zoning report. And I don't have much to say, except we met, we typically don't announce things like this, but DMC's been very visible in their efforts to keep everyone updated in terms of moving forward. We anticipate getting an application for the DMC Children's Clinic here within the next 30 days. So you'll be seeing something soon.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I apologize for skipping. Let's start down at this end. Mr. Gottlieb, do you have any comments?
None.
Some of the controversial aspects of the assisted living, or whatever you want to call the medical facility over on the church property, I think in order for this to be a win-win situation, Mr. Chairman, I agree with you. We need to have communication with everybody concerned. I think tonight was a good start, but I think the church needs to be a a more active participant in making that happen so that they don't not only have more unity in their congregation, but to make this good for Troy. I like what went on tonight, regardless of how your gut feelings are. Nothing has been proposed on this, and I think we need to look at the details very closely and see if this is going to be a detriment to the not only the neighborhoods, but to our master plan, or if this is going to be a plus for us. But more details have to come forth before any concrete sides can be taken, but we need to have more communication, and the more active the church becomes in this process, the better for everybody. Thank you.
Trent? Nothing. Mr. Hudson?
Just a question. About a year ago, we got a presentation enthusiastically received by us on the Northfield project. We're going to have mixed use, et cetera. Has anything more developed? Has anybody ever submitted a plan? Nothing?
That was one of the last conversations I had with anyone on that team. Nothing. We've got nothing.
That was the Met Hotel, or was that the one, is he referring to the one across the street?
The one I was referring to was the Met Hotel site and in front of it.
And a huge development he proposed.
Right, right. Mr. Benzika?
I have to apologize. I haven't kept it. Was the Amber development approved by the council?
Yes.
What was the vote, if I may ask? Do you recall?
The vote was 5-2, I believe.
Thank you.
Mr. Stratt?
Yeah, I think that the church, going back to the church situation, the problems that the church is having is none of our business. And we should not even have that brought up as a part of our decision-making. That's their problem, that's their situation. We should be focusing strictly on, is it right to rezone or is it not right to rezone? And only that. And we have to look at it from the best interest of also the city, not just necessarily a particular group or a particular item, I feel. That's my opinion. And I'm only one, but that's the way that I'm going to look at this.
Mr. Motzny?
No comment, thanks.
Mr. Sabat, anything further?
No, just a reminder of the real estate forum on the 29th at the community center, 8 o'clock in the morning.
Mr. Carla?
Just a reminder of the real estate forum. No, it's actually, I do want to really promote that. We've gotten approximately 50 RSVPs of backer race, so it's going to be a very robust event. Last thing, and I know we beat this around, I think one of the issues that we need to think about, and Brent and I, that's what we get paid to do, is think about assisted living, convalescent centers, these types of uses, because we're going to be getting more and more of these. And really, where is an appropriate location for these types of uses? Are major mile roads, is that an appropriate location? Are they more commercially oriented? Are they more residentially oriented? So if not this location on Livernois, then where is the appropriate location for that type of use in the city? So that's something that we should all be thinking about as moving forward.
And I concur. I think if this is not an appropriate site, it does meet all of the new regulations that we had for a assisted living. Now, you're telling me the convalescent center is different, but it's slightly more intense.
The specific use says assisted living and convalescent center. It has both uses.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
Both of them. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I have Mr.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on your comment. I hope that when we do this, we look at it also, and it's going to be very hard to regulate every possible condition, but I think the massing is also very important. How it relates to, like for an example, what Mr. Taylor just mentioned about the proportion of this particular site as it relates to the residents adjacent to it being one story. It's got a hip roof. I think it's got a hip roof anyway, but regardless of what, it's shingled and it doesn't have the commercial appearance. And that makes a big difference, in my opinion, versus being on a major highway and having that same kind of a position where it looks like a home. I think if it fits in a neighborhood, it belongs in a neighborhood, and it could be. But it's kind of hard to regulate every possible condition. write it up that way. I don't know how you're going to do it, but
Try.
good luck. Yeah.
Any comments, Kathy?
No, thank you.
Thank you. I think we are adjourned.
Good.